Recording.
Good morning. My name is Paul Julian, and I am with the Veterans Memorial Center in Merritt Island, Florida, and we're doing a Veterans History Project interview. We have the opportunity to interview Mr. Stanley Borucki of Edgewater, Florida, that basically has distinguished service in the Air Force back in the late 70s, and we're eager to hear his story. We are doing this interview at the Veterans Memorial Center Library. Today is February 24th, 2022. And I guess we'll get started by welcoming Stan and asking him some, basic details, as far as biographical details. Where were you born, Stan?
I was born in Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, New York. And who were your parents, and did both of them work?
My mother, her first name is Bertha, and my dad's first name is Stanley. And yes, they both worked. My dad was a sign painter, and my dad was also a musician. And my mother worked various various jobs through their course of a lifetime and whatnot.
Okay.
And I'm of Polish descent. They were both fluent bilingual English and Polish.
Okay. And so you were not only were you born in Buffalo, but you were raised there too, huh?
I was in Buffalo, New York till I was 8, and then we moved to a suburb of Buffalo, Cheektowaga, New York.
Okay. And tell me something, Stan. Did you have brothers or sisters?
I do. I had 4 brothers and 1 sister.
Okay. Did any of them serve in the military?
Yes, they did.
Were the brothers and sisters?
Yeah. My brothers. One served in Thailand. They were both drafted. One served in Thailand. He spent 2 years in the Army. That was my brother Rich. My other brother Paul. He served in Vietnam, and he was in Vietnam from '66 to '67. He was in the Tan Son Nhut area, and he has some combat experience and whatnot. But it's still with them today. Yeah.
Thank you, Stan. You were not drafted.
No, I was not.
Okay, you figured, like I did, you might as well go ahead and pick when you can, and
My oldest brother was my inspiration. He went in the Air Force when I was 3, and ever since that, it was like, nah, I got to do this.
Right.
It fascinated me, the
Right.
jets and everything else, and he was very positive about it. But it was always a goal of mine.
Okay, thanks, Stan. And while we're on the subject, I'd like what was your, first of all, your brothers, what was their feelings about the service?
Wow. It's kind of hard. They're 7 and 8 years older than me, so there was, there's a gap there as far as, when they served and my understanding of things. My brother from Vietnam, he's very quiet about things. He doesn't go into any depth. Certain things about him have changed. Thank God I adore. I mean, to me, if anybody asks me who's my hero, it's him.
Yeah.
But they had interesting adventures, so to speak. My other brother Rich, he ended up going to Thailand for a year, and in fact, the two of them they actually crossed in Southeast Asia for a time. One was in Vietnam and one was in Thailand at the same time for several months, which was kind of convenient. But with my brother Rich, he didn't seem to mind. He did his time. They didn't have any they didn't have any super goals or anything like that, but they served their country. They believed in what they did. They took an oath, and they served,
honorably.
Yes, they definitely did. So I'm real, I'm proud of that fact. And when it came my time, graduated on Sunday. I was in on Thursday.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Was did your sisters develop any opinion?
I'm sorry.
Did your sisters have any opinion of about yours and your brother's service?
No, she was married at the time, and in fact, she was married at the time. She had 2 children, right when they were serving and whatnot. Her husband was a National Guard member at the time, and she was pretty supportive. It wasn't like our family was like anti-Vietnam or anything like that. And again, you look at the history. If you look at kind of like my family's ancestry and stuff. My dad worked on P-40s during World War II. I had other relatives that were in. So being military service was not unusual.
Okay. And then let's now go back to you. Primary and secondary schools or college?
Like I said, when I didn't have the money to go to school, or there were roadblocks. My mother's only got my mother had an 8th grade education. Like I said, they were bilingual, but my mother had an 8th grade education. My dad only had a 6th grade education. When my dad was growing up as a sign painter, he was an apprentice. During the Depression era, he'd be trading sign work for like sausage and stuff like that.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So when it was my time to make decisions and stuff, like I said, I always had a desire to join the Air Force, and that's where I went.
Okay. Did you have? So you graduated. You had the full high. You graduated.
I did graduate out of high
and then,
school.
like,
Yes.
You, on a Friday.
I graduated on Sunday.
On a Sunday, and then you were in the service on Thursday.
Yes.
Did you have any jobs before you went to into the Air Force?
I was a newspaper boy for 3 years, and believe it or not, that taught me an awful lot. People think, well, in my case, because it depends on somebody's personality. But what being a paper boy did for me is, I had 2 places that were like bars, restaurants, and then I had a bowling alley that had a bar to it. So there were, every day I would come in contact with a lot of people, and you could gauge from the newspapers you were peddling, you could gauge certain emotions from people. Like, I've got these, when the lunar landing, they went nuts. I mean, I was walking in there, and they're talking about, hey, we're going to beat these commie guys and stuff, because a lot of them, when the lunar landing, it was 25 years from the end of World War, 24 years from the end of World War II, so you had a lot II.
Yeah.
Hardcore veterans that did some stuff in World War II. Yes.
Yeah, but also were involved in getting the rocket up there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you walked in and you caught that, and it's like, wow, this is big. That's why I have the newspapers.
Yeah.
Because I said, this is really an issue. I had one guy, the most unique thing that happened is, when I was delivering those newspapers, I had one customer I'd never seen. I deliver the paper, come time to get paid, open the door, the envelope was in between the doors, and I take the envelope and stuff. When they landed on the moon, this guy came out of the house to get the newspaper, and I'm like, wow. And I said, this must be something, and that's why I saved those newspapers. People were asking me, do you have extras? I ended up going out. I bought 10. I had to pay a whole $1, and then went back to the places and got 5 to different people that wanted it,
Yeah.
and then the other 5 I've saved totally intact.
Okay. I guess you already said that you went in voluntarily right after high school.
Mm-hmm.
Then I guess a big question is, why did you join?
I expected to go to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. One of the funny parts is, people were going to Canada because they didn't want to. They thought they were going to go to Vietnam.
Which is just across the bridge, right, for you?
Well, no, more than that. I joined the Air Force expecting to go to Vietnam, and they sent me to Canada. So it's like, okay. and it was definitely an interesting experience because where they sent me, it was extremely French, the surrounding area.
Did you?
Yeah.
You joined because you wanted to serve in Vietnam, or what? Or that you wanted to avoid?
Well, I've always wanted. I knew I wanted to join.
Mm-hmm.
If going to Vietnam was a result of my volunteering, then so be it. You know, others have done it,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, we can do this.
Did you join because of? But was a part of it Stan, that you're kind of following within your father's and your brother's footsteps?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it.
Yeah.
They were an inspiration.
Yeah.
They really were. My brother Dan, when he joined the Air Force and stuff, it was like, wow, this is really neat. When he came, he liked it.
Yeah.
You know, or at least he was 15 years older than me. But the perception I had is he really liked it. It was neat seeing him, when he came home and stuff, and he was always very, very positive. And that's what put me on the track to the Air Force.
Yeah.
And my other brothers, again, I can't speak for them, but they were both drafted. I mean, I was there when both of them had to leave and whatnot.
Yeah.
It was interesting. The developments, when they're leaving, it's really hard, because Vietnam was going on. It's like,
Yeah.
what's going to happen? But it's like, no, suck it up, and we're going. We're going to take this.
Okay.
So,
And did you leave behind a significant other, a pet, anything?
no, that everything was secure when I left. I felt good. I mean, it's not like
You felt you had everything all tidied
well,
up and
I was done with high school.
Yeah.
I'm still to this day. I'm very, very close with a lot of my high school friends
Yeah.
or my classmates and whatnot. It's like you go on to the next chapter.
yeah. And for you it was clean. It was clean. You just went
I didn't have I wasn't.
nothing was undone.
No, I wasn't running from anything or
Right.
anything. It's like, oh my God, my life is.
Right.
The only thing is we didn't have the financial ability to for me to go to school at the time.
I see. And your initial point of entry, where did you initially, so you enlisted, what happened on that Thursday? What did yeah.
No, I just went to where I was supposed to report. We did all the paperwork, took the oath, and then we got on the plane.
Where did you report?
I'm sorry.
Do you
It was in for the processing. It was in Buffalo,
Okay.
and then by the end of the day, I was on the plane going to San Antonio.
Okay.
And a very, very, very good high school friend of mine who I'm still in contact with. Sparring game. He's a Marine.
Yeah.
He went to Camp Lejeune. I went to San Antonio.
Okay. And then
Lackland.
you went to boot camp, and then what was any vivid memories of that time of boot camp, or no? Was the transition difficult?
No, the transition was. It's beyond interesting. What happened is, all of a sudden, I came from an all-white school. I mean, things like that, and then you're introduced to all these people of all different backgrounds and all different cultures, and that's what caught me because I always liked history,
Yeah.
but I gained so much from all these people.
Yeah.
Every person I came in contact was like a different learning experience,
Yeah.
and that was throughout my Air Force career to this day.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest things with me. Everybody you come in contact with, is a potential for them to add something to you.
Did it start at that point?
It really did.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was one guy who had a real hard time with the running, and like four of us were behind him because we had to do I think a mile and a half in a certain amount of time. But I remember the four of us were swarming behind him to make sure that he did it, within the time frame. We're the pacers. Our time might have slowed down, but we were getting him across the finish line. That type of thing.
That's commendable. So it really wasn't really that difficult making the transition.
No.
And then, did any of the instructors at boot camp stand out?
No, they were good. They were fair. I didn't. I don't have anything bad to say. They were strict.
Yeah.
The typical boot camp thing. They were strict. They were stern, but as far as things went, they were fair. Our group was. We gelled as a group.
Yeah.
The flight that we were in, we gelled. We worked together. They helped us. I got to step back. They helped us learn about teamwork.
Yeah.
They gave us a certain set of values, or they presented it with you, to you, and we were able to build on that. And if you'll notice, you'll hear me say "we" a lot because it's not me. It was the team.
Mm-hmm. So, is there one or two particular memories of your time in boot camp that stick out?
Not for me personally. I mean, I did what I was supposed to do. As a group, we got along. I did okay. It was 6 weeks long.
That's it.
It was
6 weeks?
Yeah. The Air Force was six weeks at that time. The biggest thing I got was a boost from my recruiter, because my recruiter and I got along very well, and I enlisted June 29th, and on July 1st, the Air Force changed their policy from getting a stripe after basic training to waiting 4 months.
I see.
And my recruiter and I, because I volunteered at his office and stuff like that, he says, "I'm going to get you in before July 1st."
Right.
So as soon as I graduated, our flight, when we graduated, we got stripes right out of basic training.
That's great. Then what was the what did you do after boot camp? I mean, what did you go to more training after boot camp?
No. How do I put it? No, I was pretty much, I take it back. I went to security police training.
Oh. How many was it long?
No, that was another one. I don't know if it was like 5 or 6 weeks, something like that.
Was it at Lackland?
Yes, it was.
And how was that?
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's where I met one of my friends, and he and I were roommates together, and we worked. I worked Echo 5 at Griffiths Air Force Base, and on my days off, he worked at. And again, we were roommates, and we just met a lot of people, and you had some really good relationships.
Yeah. Do you recall? So did you do well at the school?
In security police training? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I had a red rope, back then, and still have it at my house.
Did that enable you to stand to kind of get selection assignments afterwards? Or?
No, that didn't help me further, because I went to Griffiths Air Force Base and started out where everybody started out or whatnot. But being the red rope in tech school, it gave me additional responsibilities, and I was a little surprised, because I was a straight C student, maybe, in high school, and all of a sudden things were going better for me than I ever imagined.
Focus is better.
Yeah, it was just like, I can do this.
Like the light went on.
Yeah, well, I can do this. I mean, it's like, I didn't find my niche in high school nearly as much as I did when I got in the Air Force, and it was to the credit of other people.
Yeah. Okay. Then you went. So then you went to law. What was it? What do they call
Griffiths.
it?
Oh.
What was the name of the training?
Lackland Air Force Base. Yeah, security police.
Security police. And then
yeah.
what was you? Did you able to go home on leave, or did you go to your first?
Afterwards I went home on leave.
Yeah. And then what was your first assignment?
My first big assignment was Griffiths Air Force Base.
Okay. And did you? How long were you there?
I was there for about 2.5 years.
2.5 years
longer
now.
than that.
So, how did things go for you there?
Awesome.
Awesome, yeah.
Awesome.
I think that had a lot to. Was this, as a precursor, or is this kind of set you up for your second part of the next assignment?
I don't know how it went. I mean, what I'm referring to is the people that I came in contact with that became my mentors. I wish
No problem.
No,
No problem.
I wish I could show them what an impact they had, because it really, really went out. And they, for example, my wing commander, who became a 2-star general later on, I was able to be the president of the Enlisted Advisory Council. I was a 2-striper. I was an E3.
How old were you? How old were you?
I was 19 at one time. I mean, you know, in the course of this. And again, if you look at that thing, it's dated during Yom Kippur War. That's 1973. I was 19 when that came out. But for example, one of the things that General Maxon did is when I had meetings with him, my 2 big mentors were General Maxon.
You're not referring to this, are you?
Yes, I am,
Okay.
because that's October of 1973, and that was during the time of the Yom Kippur War. But
And explain, if you would, Stan, explain that a little bit.
this shouldn't happen, because what this is all about is
What does that mean? What does that?
what does it mean to me?
What is that bulletin? What tell me?
It tells you if you're on the flight line, this is the traffic flow and things like that. But what they did is they put my gate shack where I worked and my name on it.
So they personalized it.
And they did. And this wasn't the cop shop that
Yeah.
personalized it.
Yeah.
It was the maintenance crews. It was the pilots. It was, you know, the commanders and whatnot. Because I mean, this comes out everywhere, and it's, you know, it's an accident prevention bulletin.
That was at Griffiths, huh?
That was at Griffiths.
So people started to notice your professionalism and your positiveness, and
I can't speak about me, but I know things happen that if people took an interest in me, that's you know, things were happening. But you know, I just want to make one quick remark
Sure.
about General Maxon. When I was working with him,
who was
General
he?
Maxon,
What was his
he was the wing commander, the commander of the wing for our base, and Dan Cilio was the wing sergeant major. And what happened is, whenever I had meetings with him, one of the most unique things, because he's a wing commander, I'm an E3, E4.
Yeah.
Give me a break. If I had a meeting with him, you know, they'd say, you know, like Sully would say, you know, you come in here between 9 and 10 or something like that. Of all the meetings I ever had with this guy, Colonel, he never once said, hey, I got another meeting in 10 minutes. Can we hurry this up? Never. Mm-hmm. Never. He treated me with dignity, with respect, and he showed me how to get, I mean, he showed me how to get things done, how they did it, and Dan Cilio was the same way. He said, look, this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to achieve. Look, we've got this on the agenda. We've got to look into this, and this. It's yours. You need something, come back. And that's the way, and it's like, that's what happened.
were those the people that you spoke with before the interview that gave you the recommendations? Were these are the people?
They were the ones, it's twofold. They were the ones that were doing things, like I said, with the councils and stuff like that. But my rapport with the people on the flight line, and understand, Colonel Maxon was the colonel for the whole wing, so certain things trickled up, and I was building a rapport with the people on the flight line as to how we were getting things done, because I had the same post every day.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I established a standard. I mean, it's easy to do because you got your regulations and stuff.
Yeah.
But I established a standard and stuck to my guns, and things just started to gel with everybody.
That's great.
And if
Maybe not so much with your colleagues, right? Not so much.
at that point, no, everybody was on board.
Yeah.
The guy I worked for, his first name is Ollie.
Mm-hmm.
Ollie Bowman. Well, he was my boss, so that made it Stanley and Ollie. So let's not delve into that.
So you served 2.5 years there.
Yes, I did.
And then what was it, Stan, that you saw this? How did you come across this, like, lifetime opportunity for the next assignment? I believe. How did you come across it? Did somebody come up and say, "Hey, you need to put in for this"? Or?
Yes, but there's it's a little bit different, because you're talking about something that happened in or the things that occurred at Griffiths. Then I went to Canada. When I went to Canada, and I still had contact, or before I went to Canada also, people were saying that. Look, you did a good job while
So
you're here.
Canada was next.
Canada was
So
Canada was
tell
next.
me about that.
Okay, because that's where I started. That's where I was at when I was processing for Washington D.C.
So tell me, how did you get? How did that? You did 2.5 years at Griffiths. How did you end up in Canada, of all places?
Wow.
They're part of NORAD.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Even though I wasn't a draft dodger, somehow I ended up in Canada. Yes. No, they sent me to an American detachment, very small organization. We were attached to a CF 101 organization, and they also had
What's CF
F5s.
101?
An F 101 Voodoo, but it's Canadian, so they call it CF 101s. It's an American jet, a McDonnell Douglas.
Is it fighter or bomber?
It's a fighter. It's an interceptor.
Okay.
That was the transition time when they had interceptors and things like that.
So that's like surveillance and
No, that was Air Defense Command.
fighter.
We actually were under Chappie James
Okay.
when I was up there, because he was the head of the Air Defense Command. But I went up there, and my job assignment was a little bit different. It was a very interesting environment. I was working with both French, and the location of the base, Bagotville, was very, very French. I can't speak for what it is now. I was back there from 75 to 77, and it was very, very French. And there were some personal difficulties for me, because when I went up there, there was some abrasiveness between French Canadians and English Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the CF-10, the Voodoo Squadron was an English Canadian squadron. The CF-5s was a French Canadian squadron. And what happens when you're in the military, if you're a veteran, you can understand it, is wherever they put you, especially when you're in a foreign country, you have to represent the uniform properly. And I got along, on the one hand, I got along with everybody. On the other hand, because I took one of my courses in high school was Latin. I took it for 4 years.
Yeah.
And when I went to Canada, I wanted to learn French. It was easy to do, but I wanted to learn it. And you saw friction with somebody who was French versus somebody that was English, and it's like the way I described it is like a kid loving both parents.
Yeah.
But the parents are in the process of divorce, and they can't stand each other, and
Yeah.
and sometimes they try to get you to choose sides.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that. And again, I wanted to learn French, because anything I can learn, it's great. I don't care what age you are.
Yeah.
But that was a difficult environment to work with, and I
So
found
it was difficult to operate. Huh?
yeah, well, because you don't want to you don't want to cause any trouble and have that reflect on your organization. That's not what you're there. Nobody was bad to me. Nobody was mean to me or anything like
Yeah.
that. So I'm going to do my absolute best to maintain a positive conduct. And again, I made some friends. When I was off duty, I was single. I started ice skating.
Yeah.
Oh boy. And it's really bad when kids that are 8 years old can like really run rings around you. But the Canadians were like really good, and they saw me the parents saw me at the rink a lot, and they said, "Hey, do you want to help with our skating club and stuff?" And it's like, really? You got to be kidding me. But so I got involved in that. There was one girl one day when I was doing holding on to the side of the rink, and I'm moving, and she comes like whipping by, jumps up in the air, is doing a spin. As she's doing a spin, she grabs my hat, lands, and says, "You want your toque back? You got to catch me."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you realize my chances of winning a lottery without a ticket are better. And she was one of my influences that they pushed me along with stuff. And again, one of the reflections I have of the ice skating, which broke my heart, was there was.
Did the lady stay in your life?
Oh no, she was only like 10.
Oh wow.
I mean, her parents and I were we got close. I mean,
Yeah.
I got to qualify some of these things, because sometimes I'm dealing with people whose parents are officers,
Yeah.
and I knew my place between Canadian officers and me being enlisted.
Yeah.
But we did have I had excellent relationships.
Yeah.
I had excellent relationships. But
Did-
yeah, go ahead.
So, Stan, did you So how long were you there at?
77 to 75. During the 76 Olympics, I was over there, and the base, a lot of the base vacated to provide security in
77 to
Montreal.
79.
75 to 77.
75 to 77.
Right.
Okay.
And I was there for the 76 Olympics. The base had a lot of people go pulling security for the Olympics at the time in Montreal. And
Did you were you there? I mean, at the Olympics or?
I got a chance to go down there to the the Olympic Stadium and stuff. And then again, I lived in Buffalo, so and I was from Griffiths, which is central New York. And I used to go through different areas, but I always have to pass Montreal, and I'd see the Olympic Village and stuff like that.
Neat.
So,
how did it come about to get this great opportunity that 0.1% American would get that?
Well, before I left Griffiths, General Maxon told me, he says, you really ought to take a crack at it and stuff. It's like, come on, is this me? Do you know my background? Are you familiar with me? But he knew how to push my buttons. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I don't mean when I say push my buttons. He knew how to push buttons to motivate you.
Yeah.
Not he was stellar.
Yeah.
The man was absolutely stellar. And he put the bug in my ear, and I had a couple other pilots that I knew, and they concurred. When I'm in conversations, like I came back to Griffiths. One of the things they did for me at Griffiths is after one of the ORIs, they invited me to the Officers Club.
Oh wow!
And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
So I said, well, let me explore this.
Yeah.
Because this is a process.
Yeah.
Number one, you got to have 5 years in. I enlisted in June 29th of 1972, and here we are in 75, 76. So I'm going, well, let me explore this and stuff, and finally I said, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I talked to the local, my local commanders within my detachment, and I bounced it off them, and I says, I'm gonna try to do this, but one of the things I was going to do is I said, I want somebody to know if I'm doing the application process that I really want this job. Mm-hmm. If do not discredit anybody. If you're going to do it, go all in.
Yeah.
Don't. I think no. Either you want it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Griffiths, and I'm going to see if I can get a couple of letters of recommendation.
Yeah.
So I went back there. By then General Maxon was gone. He was in the Pentagon. Mm-hmm. Dan Cilio was gone. He was with the Air Force. Again, this is like a year after I left the base. And I said, I'm going to try to approach 20 people for letters of recommendation. I'll see what I get. If I can get 4 or 5, I said that'd be a real nice package to send in, like 4 or 5 letters of recommendation, and then they're going to get the understanding that I want this job. Mm-hmm. I'm not taking this lightly. It's because sometimes you have people that are a little on the arrogant side, and it's like, I deserve it. I didn't deserve it. Mm-hmm. I wanted it. I had to see if I could meet the standard. Mm-hmm. So I went back to Griffiths Air Force Base, and I talked to some people that I knew. I said, hey, can you help me out? Now, you got to understand this. I was a cop, and I did get a letter of recommendation from my current commander in Canada, and because my duty performance was good over there, and I did get one of the officers who was in our security police unit. Mm-hmm. He gave me a letter of recommendation. My commander was gone, mm-hmm. And then I went about talking to people, but who was I talking to? Pilots?
What was the name of the job?
Which job are you referring to?
What was the name of the job that you're...
Oh, I wanted to be... I was trying to go to Andrews Air Force Base to be a member of the 89th Military Airlift Group, Special Air Mission, SAM, and they housed Air Force One, and there was an opportunity to fly as aircraft security for the president and all the the members of Congress that would be flying on special air mission aircraft. And that was pretty high profile. That was, for me, that was top shelf. And I'm like,
Yeah.
So, I said, see what we can do. And I went to these guys and I said, okay, who do I know? And it's like, oh gosh. So I did my rounds, but I was talking to like the colonel and civil engineers, the aircraft maintenance,
Yeah.
Commander and stuff. I mean, I was talking to colonels, I was talking to lieutenant colonels, and even, and then some of the other people, because it was neat. Some of the people I knew as second lieutenants were now captains,
Yeah.
and they're running, they're running things and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So that was kind of, that just, personally, just some good feelings to connect with these people again. And I just said, can you give me a letter of recommendation?
Yeah. Yeah.
To this day, I have every one, and I want you to know that I never forgot anybody that wrote a letter of recommendation. It's all here. When I went to Andrews Air Force Base, I pulled my package. I asked for 20, and the whole thing was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Yeah.
General, Colonel Ramsey, Vice Commander of the base. Colonel Gilbert, Deputy Commander, former Deputy Base Commander. Colonel Slauson, Commander for Maintenance. Everybody who owed me nothing
So,
a year after I was gone.
and then, so that kind of bolstered your confidence, huh?
It did, but it also put the pressure on.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to disappoint.
How long from the time you applied, Stan, to the time that you get?
The standard was 5 years.
Yeah.
You had to have 5 years in.
How long did it take you to know if you?
I enlisted June 29th, 1972. July 1st, 1977. That's when my orders were.
And then, so tell us now. Tell us, since this was really an awesome experience. Tell us. Can you give us like a brief and concise chronology as to how it all went out? I mean, how,
Yeah, I can summarize things. I'll even date it back
Okay.
with the example. But somebody said, congratulations, you'll be walking tall and stuff. And I'm glad they said that, because when I went there, I was in the land of the giants. The credentials of the people that I had the privilege of working with were impeccable.
Mhm.
The standards that they had were, to quote the quotable quote, when I got up there, and the guy, somebody was explaining to me, and they go, well, it's simple how you get along around here. Just remember the basic rule is perfection is the lowest acceptable standard.
Mhm.
And basically we're a team. Look at what we are doing.
Mhm.
We're always it's difficult sometimes because you're always in the public eye with that job.
Mhm.
You're coming in. You're coming even if you're not flying. When planes are leaving or whatnot. If they're taking, for example, a congressional delegation or whatever, you're dealing with all kinds of people. You're dealing with congressmen, with senators, with staff, and in a lot of cases, like when I was flying, a lot of cases you're dealing with cabinet members, and you have got to be perfect. They do not want you, or they do not want to hear anything negative about your conduct. And sometimes to be able to do that is unbelievably difficult. I mean, I'm relating more to when I was flying, because you're going to different countries. And you're dealing with different cultures. Some you get along with, some you don't. It's Cold War time, and it was again, it was an excellent learning experience. The people that I worked with, they were all, most of them were well above me as far as their experience and whatnot. And it was definitely a good relationship. They were phenomenal.
Is there a most vivid memory of the time that? Anything that really, wow.
During my time at Andrews,
Yeah.
it was a mission that we went to South Africa, Switzerland, and Moscow.
Tell us.
Because it's very broad. Number one, we'll start with South
How long
Africa.
were you gone?
I don't know. It was probably maybe 10 days or something like that. I can't remember, but I was traveling with Cyrus Vance, the Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
We started off by going to South Africa. Okay. Issue number one. The head of my security team was black.
Mm-hmm.
South Africa was apartheid back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard rumblings. Now, this is an experience for me. Now, fortunately, I was in Canada where I saw things where the relations between two groups wasn't all that great. But in today's age, when they talk about white privilege, that was the one time I had the opportunity to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
It sucked
Mm-hmm.
because I'm in I'm walking around downtown, trying to get souvenirs or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you see a sign, whites only, and it's like, wow.
Was
this
only
is-
to get into a place? Or
Yeah, or whether it was a bathroom. I didn't go in, but I saw
Yeah.
the sign,
Yeah.
and I saw that, and it just, I never saw that before, and I'm like, wow, and just it
It's
just
almost
felt
like-
wrong because
look
from
at
the time
that-
I went in the Air
look at-
Force,
Look at epiphany for you. Based
yeah,
on your
well,
experience.
from the time I went in the Air Force, it's just like, get this done.
Yeah.
I never looked at who I was getting it done with. You got to get it done.
Yeah.
And it was never an issue. Nothing was ever presented to me. I never had any difficulties with that. And all of a sudden, you see this for the first time. And again, my head of the detail for security, he was black. And you can see him. There's a thing on YouTube where we land in Moscow, on that mission, and you'll see him at the front of the steps because we went from South Africa to Switzerland to Moscow. But anyway,
Switzerland stand wasn't anything.
I went to Switzerland a lot. Switzerland was a hub because of like where the politics would gather to negotiate, because it was a neutral country, I guess. The other thing is we went to Switzerland because we were going to Moscow. We had to pick up a Russian navigator in Switzerland to go to Moscow. So that's how that's how that was going. But when I was in South Africa, my chauffeur said, "Hey, you like photography?" Because I was really getting into it at that point. He goes, "You like photography? I got some artists I want to take you to." And again, takes me to this guy's house. They treat me like royalty.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. One of the things he even gave me, the guy is a very very famous artist. I got some stuff from that I could show you, but this guy showed me his stuff. He opened up his house. The hospitality was just unbelievable. And that went, I was like, wow.
How many days were you there, Stan?
I was probably there 3 or 4 days.
3 or 4
We were
days.
there for a while. I learned a lot. These people were really phenomenal, and I had.
But you noticed the schism between.
That part
the
I
white and
did.
black.
That part I did, and I also got to see some tribal people living in South Africa. I got to see some interaction with them and how things went, and it's like, okay, because again, I withdrew a little bit because I want to make sure that I approach this right. They speak, again, where this happened. Number one, they speak Afrikaans. They speak English. And the other thing that happened that was significant is with the State Department on this trip, we had 3 female State Department agents for security. And the South African newspaper put them on the front page, and it said Charlie's Angels. And it's like, normally, security people are very low key and stuff like. But they had these 3 female agents. They were, how do I put it? They were new as far as traveling with me. I think that was my first trip where I traveled with them, and they were good.
So how?
They were
so
really
then
good.
You went from there to Switzerland.
Correct. Like I said, probably the main reason.
Nothing really struck you there.
In Switzerland, well, I was there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, this was October. I've been to Geneva. The thing I liked about Geneva is I spoke Canadian French.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't like about it is I had one guy that was called Swiss Aviation. They gave us our fuel. You're talking about an American that comes from a Polish background, speaking Quebecois French in Geneva, Switzerland. And when I spoke to him in French, he started laughing.
Yeah.
And I says, I says, what's up? And he goes, your accent. And I'm going, oh, this is good. But it was friendly.
Yeah.
But Geneva was, I used to go and do a lot of souvenir shopping because
Yeah.
again, I spoke enough French to get by and stuff. So it was a good hub.
Yeah. Then when you went from Geneva to Moscow, tell us about that.
Yeah. Since we had a Russian navigator, I got arrogant and myself, just because you got to understand one thing. I'm Polish. I'm very Polish. I'm talking about. I grew up with a lot of DPs from World War II, and if you know what happened between Russia and Poland in 1944, I met a lot of people that didn't have good feelings about that.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a background where I heard people say England can say they were instrumental in defeating Germany, but they can't claim they won the war.
Mm-hmm.
Because they came into the war on September 3rd, 1939 to liberate Poland. Poland was never liberated. And there was a lot of hostility because at the time I grew up, what happened was these people who I heard saying these things, they were in the United States and they didn't have the connections with their relatives. And there was a lot of hostility. So you gotta cool your jets. That was one of the few times.
You had to have self-control.
Oh, tremendous amount.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how bad it was going to be at first. But anyway, we're going to Moscow and we pick up this navigator. God, the pilot was good because I said, "Show him how to land this thing, man. Just do it." And I'll tell you, I couldn't even tell we landed. He put it down so soft it was like a feather landing on cotton balls.
Wow.
Man, this thing just went down. Yes, but that was pretty good. The hard part was when I was guarding the airplane itself, because when the plane lands and everybody does their thing and we work in shifts to provide security. And I'm over there and I'm like this far from my counterpart.
From the Russian counterpart?
Yeah. That was rough. I mean, 78 was
No
height of the Cold War.
No communications attempted.
A little bit. I did it more with one of the people that were showing us around. I don't know if he was KGB or what, but because one of the things I fiddled around with the harmonica when I was walking around B-52s, had to learn how to do something with my time. And we were in a souvenir shop, and I go, "Hey, I want to get one of those harmonicas." It didn't even work, but I said, "I want to get those harmonicas," and I go, "What's the Russian word for two?" And he goes, "Dva." I go, "Dva." I said, "That's the same as Polish." And he goes, "Oh, you speak Polish?" And I told him in Polish that I was Polish. And his face just went red. And it's like, yeah. There's something to this. But I mean, again, I didn't do anything that would discredit. I shouldn't say you can't. Number one, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of people that trusted me. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I didn't step out of line. But that was.
How many days were you in Moscow?
I think we were there for about 3 days. I got to go to the circus. I got to go to the ballet.
Yeah.
That was really neat. Very good. And in fact, I still have my program from the ballet. It was a very good learning experience because you don't hear a lot about the ballet. For example, in the United States, it's not. I saw people cry and throw flowers.
Really?
I mean, at the end, I mean, people were, they seriously crying, and I'm like, wow. And that's where what some of this was doing was giving me exposures to other cultures, and I saw what was significant and what it meant to them. Mm-hmm. Just because it doesn't mean any. I don't have the familiarity with it as they do. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean it's not important. And I'm like, wow, because I saw the same thing in Canada with skating. Yeah. With the ice skating, how much time people would put. I mean, I see these little kids fall down. They'd be bleeding and whatnot because they're still trying to figure out how to work on their skate, and they'd get right back up and go to it. But when I was in Moscow and I saw the ballet, it's like, wow, to see this audience reaction, it's really, really something. So you got to know these people, and you got to achieve a certain amount of respect for some of the things that are pertinent in their culture and whatnot.
So you left Moscow and then you went directly back to DC, or?
Yeah, after that we came back home on
Did
that.
you did they, back then? Did they have refuelers? They refuel you and.
We usually stopped at bases, at Air Force bases and stuff.
Okay.
And depends on what, because like I think once when I went to Vienna, we took 26,000. It was actually it was actually at one point in time, or it was designated Air Force One. I always say designated because unless the president's in it, it's not Air Force One.
I see.
If the president's not in it, it's got a different call sign, like Sam 26,000.
Yeah.
But we had one where I think we went all the way from Vienna home without refueling, and that's going into the wind.
Wow.
So yeah, it had some legs on it. But from Moscow, I think we stopped someplace.
Did then any other thing, Stanley, you could think of? Any other experience that really was moving, really changed you during that time? Any other trip?
Yeah, there were probably a few trips that enlightened me. I mean, it was my first. We went to Hong Kong. What it's like to be amongst people that you don't look like and whatnot, and you're mingling with the general population and things like that. I went to a store that was run by the British, and I got to see stuff over there, and I got a chance to talk to some British sailors and stuff like that. I always made an effort whenever I went someplace to try to converse with people. Where you're from, what do you do, stuff like that. Because once I can understand those certain things, then I have a better ability to interact with them.
Yeah.
For example, if you're talking with somebody and they have a PhD in mathematics, okay, you get that. So this is the level of conversation you can have.
Yeah.
If you have somebody that is just 16 years old and they have a different background, then you know how to deal with that. And that's what I would try to gauge. It's like, how do I do this? And it really made it instrumental in how I went forward with stuff. But I made a lot of friends. You're asking me about other things. There's a picture of the girl right there. I was in London. I asked her for directions, and because I wanted to go someplace, and she goes, "I'm not catching the underground for a couple hours. I'll give you a tour." Took me all around London. She explained to me that Big Ben was the name of the bell, not the clock.
Oh wow.
She took me to Trafalgar Square and said something about Admiral. The statue didn't have it where he should have a patch over his eye because he only had one eye or something like that. But I mean, she explained all this. I couldn't even buy her a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Oh nice.
Or a cup of tea. But I mean, she took me all around, and it's like, wow, this is phenomenal. And the reason I can remember this now is because years later, when I was taking a photography course, they said make a picture out of a slide, and I'm running through the slides, and I'm going, oh my God, and there she was. Wow. And it just bothers me because
is this picture?
that's this girl over here on the bottom. But the thing is, she was the epitome of British hospitality. I mean, she was the absolute. Where is she? She was the absolute epitome of hospitality. The reason her hair is messed up is because as she was leaving me, that part I do remember, as she was leaving me, I was going to take a picture of her, so I called her name. So she turned around and her hair's kind of flying around and whatnot, and I got the shot.
Who's anything else on this?
Wow. Okay.
While we have it up.
Okay. This is the gentleman in South Africa. What that's called is pyrography. What he did, which was absolutely phenomenal, is he did all these. He was very much into composers and stuff. That was one. He could do anything, but in this one, he was very much into composers. And what that is that burnt wood. And that was one of his talents. I've got some pictures over there that if you saw some of the stuff that he did with like his paintings, you'd think it was out of the American Southwest, and it was South Africa. But this is the First Lady, Rosalind Carter. Mm-hmm. This is the Vice President, Walter Mondale. That's Cyrus Vance. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a picture out of I just thought it was neat. This was out of Moscow at the circus, and we were in Colombia, and these, I believe, are my Soviet counterparts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With the plane that they had.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we talked about London with the young lady that was so gracious to show you around London. Any other memories that you think really moved you and that kind of changed the way you looked at things?
There were. I don't know if there's enough time in the day. Yeah, there were, because what happened, like when I was in Switzerland and I could speak French, even though I wasn't that good at it. If people saw when people saw that you were trying, they would really be accommodating.
Yeah.
Even though you're like bouncing off walls, they were very, very accommodating, and that was kind of interesting how they did that. Their attitude changed a little bit. It's like, hey, we can do this.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you have this attitude of like everybody should speak English.
Right.
Like if you come to the United States from whatever country and you're a tourist and whatnot, and you're trying to buy something from me and you don't speak English, some people are like, oh my God, you come to the United States and you don't speak English.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
How are we supposed to do this? But then what happens when Americans are in foreign countries? It's like, what do you mean you don't understand English? I mean, you're in a business where you're selling souvenirs. You don't understand English? It's like, okay, so everybody should just speak English. It's better.
Well, Stan, then, so you were, there was 3 years.
Yes.
And then what was your next assignment?
After Andrews?
Yeah.
After Andrews, I got out for a year. Bought a house, went to school, or started up school, and after about a year, I joined the Arizona Air National Guard.
Arizona?
Yeah.
How did you find
Phoenix.
your way from
What's
Buffalo to Arizona?
Wow, pop quiz. What happened is the person one of the people I worked with in Canada, one of the Americans, he was from Arizona, and we were very, very good friends. And he said, "Hey, why don't you come on down, and we'll see what we can set you up with and stuff." And I went down there. I had a couple things going for me in Washington. I won't say Arizona was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
The decision I made was mine. Live with it. However it falls. I had some opportunities in Washington, lots of opportunities in Washington D.C.
Mm-hmm.
But he had me come out to Arizona, and I ended up there for 20 years. But I started, one of the things that happened when I was traveling is fell in love with photography. As soon as I could do it, I started school, started taking photography classes and stuff, which is what I wanted to do. It's really hard as a balancing act, because I was traveling so much, and the job requirements of the military, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the school the way it was set up. The way things were set up for me back then. And I really wanted to go to school. I had a little bit of an attitude problem, because the Air Force, unlike any other branch of the service, does not have warrant officers.
Yeah.
So here I am, flying with the Vice President, flying with the Secretary of State, flying with the First Lady. I flew with President Carter's mother when Pope John Paul I died, and it's like, okay, where do I go from here? And it's like, either I stayed there and continued to fly, which wouldn't have been bad, but either I stayed there and did that, or I had to get out. The other thing I didn't like is being single. They just built a brand new barracks, and I was going to be in a barracks.
Yeah.
And it's like at that time you couldn't even have a female visitor or anything. And my counterparts are same rank as me, or some of them may be even lower. But no, that's not true. I don't think anybody there was lower ranked than I was. But my counterparts that had families, they could have people over. They could do things at their house.
Yeah.
Their 4-year-old could get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and make themselves hot chocolate in the microwave. I didn't have that in the barracks.
Yeah.
And it's like I resented that. That's why I say it. Within 6 months of getting out of the Air Force, I bought a house.
Yeah.
I went to Arizona, got a house and stuff. And,
Let me digress. Can we just digress for a second, Stan, and go back? Well, looking back on your military experience, what was the hardest part?
Are you talking about the total military experience?
The 8 years.
Oh, those 8 years? Wow. That's a little bit more difficult.
Maybe being away from home.
Yeah, no, I could get home. I'm in Washington D.C. I'm a driver. Washington D.C. to my house in Buffalo was almost like, or the suburbs was almost like 400 miles even.
Yeah.
And I get in the car, go. What was about the hardest part? No, I think that was it. Is the fact that The living conditions were a little bit restrictive. I mean, you've got credentials saying you can carry a concealed weapon with the President of the United States. Then at the same time, you come in from a mission with, say, like the Vice President, and you get a notice. It's like, if you don't take care of this, you're going to get in trouble. And what it was is when I went to one of my countries, I bought a really nice decorative candle. It had a wick in it. It's a fire hazard. And I'm like, wait a minute. I can't have a wick in my candle, but I can have a concealed weapon with the President of the United States. Work with me here. Let's try to come to terms, and it's little things like that, because I never really had a problem with the Air Force itself or anything. You know, the standards were there, and this is the way it goes. If you don't like it, hey pal, the standards are here. These standards are here before you got here. So this is the way it goes, and I respect that. The fact that we had a disagreement, you know, okay, but one thing I can say about the totality of everything is, got out of high school, joined the Air Force. I took an oath. I made a contract with the federal government. The federal government has always done everything they said to this day that they were going to do as a consequence of my taking my oath and fulfilling my service. And that's just the way it's been with us. If there's been a glitch, if you had a problem, this and that, well, what is it? How does it go or whatnot? But we've always both fulfilled both ends of our bargain, and I've never had a I don't have anything to say about our government as far as that goes.
What was the easiest part of your service?
Wow. The people. I mean, working with all the people. You know, when you're, it's kind of weird. Like, I'll go back to Griffiths. When stuff really hit the fan, you gelled as a group.
Yeah.
You know, my pilots were awesome. Yeah. You know, it's like, let's get this done. Yeah. Let's get this done. The maintenance people, whip it up.
Yeah.
Go. You know, we had our set. I don't know, a procedure that, you know, we did it. You know, we did it. You know, if it's snowing or something like that, no. The one day we had an ORI, they're moving weapons and stuff, and the weather just absolutely sucked. The weapons convoy slowed down. You see doors open on the truck, and the guys are out there with their M16s. They're running alongside the weapons, and it was great. The teamwork, the absolute teamwork. I don't have anything bad to say about supervisors or commanders as far as that goes.
So, and you mentioned earlier that you had friendships and camaraderie.
Yeah.
While serving, and then you
still do
in touch with them.
Still do.
Many of them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you recall any particular humorous or unusual events?
Wow, and not humorous, but unusual events. I had a couple of over the course of those years. I had two things. So I'm glad I get a chance to mention it. One of our good friends. I have a good friend, Ray Gomez. He had a roommate, and his roommate Mike Cupo. Ray and I were very, very good friends, and they were higher in rank than me at the time at Griffiths Air Force Base, so they had their own living quarters off base. And one day, just for whatever, Ray was coming home, didn't want to go home. He was just a couple miles away, and he stayed overnight at somebody else's house. And that night, his roommate, whatever happened, I don't know the particulars, but the place burned and his roommate passed away. He was a good friend of ours, and we were going to attend the funeral. I'm talking about the whole security police organization that could go off duty, was going to attend the funeral, and we couldn't do it because of the weather. I mean, the base actually had a plane. They were ready to rock and roll on this, and they were going to accommodate us, but because of the weather, we couldn't do it. And again, I just want people to know that I've never forgotten.
Yeah.
And then the other one was when I was in Canada, because I had his kid skating, and his name was Captain Bob Borland, and he was he was with the CF 101 unit, whatnot, and this one was really awkward because he was going to CF 100 training, which is another airplane, or that's what he told me. I'm going to CF 100 training, and it was the same time I got orders for Andrews Air Force Base, and what we were talking about is he's going one way, I'm going the next, and he was leaving first. And as we're talking about this, the last thing he said to me was, well, I guess we won't be seeing each other anymore. And December 1st of 1977, I don't know if it was that day or the next day I got the call, but I met Captain Borland again through the ice skating where I had his kids. And I get a call from a first grade teacher that was at the base, and she says, Captain Borland passed away or died. And I'm like, what's going on? And she says his voodoo went down.
Wow.
And I was like, the last thing he said to me was, I guess we won't see each other anymore.
Wow.
And what really made it different was a couple years ago, I'm on YouTube, and I'm just doing whatever, and all of a sudden I see Warlocks. Warlocks was the name of the voodoo flying group they had. And I'm going, you're kidding me. So, see what I can find out. And then there he is. It's a briefing in between the time that I was gone. He was at a briefing, and I think it's 49 seconds in that they said that.
Wow.
But I mean, his image comes up on there, and I'm like, wow. Yes, that's what I said.
What was the? So then, if we can go back, Stan, do you recall the day your service ended? So like the 8 years.
Yeah, that was uneventful.
Uneventful.
Yeah, they did the usual thing where you get your awards and stuff like that. And I'm not, seriously speaking, after this, I'm not an award person.
Yeah.
This is my lifetime award.
Yeah.
And they did the customary things that you do when you leave. No harsh feelings. The other typical thing is, they don't want you to go. They don't want you to separate. Stay, do your career and stuff like that. Got that, but no, there was nothing dramatic about it or anything else.
Where were you when it ended?
I was at Andrews.
Andrews?
Yeah, I was at Andrews Air Force Base for that.
Did you return home or?
No, I stayed in Washington for a little bit, and then I was going to Arizona after that.
Oh, right after that. So you never returned home at that point?
No, I've never lived at home after I joined.
And so when did you? Where did a significant other come into your life? Was it in Arizona?
No, Andrews.
Andrews. So you
Yep. A friend of mine who was in Germany introduced my wife, well, what is currently my wife, to me, and I was in training in Texas for NCO Academy or something like that, and she happened to be in Maine because she was a registered nurse and she was doing a conference or something like that. So everything was mixed up and put together and whatnot, and finally I was able to contact her by phone, and we had a phone conversation, then we met in her hometown, and
Where was her hometown?
a little place called Richmondville, New York, Schoharie County. And the first time, again, this sounds a little arrogant, but the first time she came down to Andrews Air Force Base to visit me, that's when President Carter was coming to Florida. So again, when he was coming to Florida, there was so much interest because he was giving the astronauts an award that they needed a second plane to take all the people that wanted to come from Washington, D.C. that were officials on that second plane. So, and it was the only time I can remember it. And during my time at Andrews Air Force Base, they had two planes come out.
Yeah.
So anyway, my wife comes to visit me at that time. Well, what happens is I'm selected to provide security for the second plane because I wasn't presidential. And my wife, this is our first date, in Washington. Bring her up to the fence. She gets to stand there, and I had several really good friends at Andrews, and my friend John was going to take care of her when I was gone for the couple hours to come into Florida, but she got a chance to stand at the fence. I was Air Force One. I'm out there with the other security team where we exchange custody, where the planes being secured, and the flying team comes out. We relieve them of custody. The guy that was on duty, he's relieved, and she got to see that for both Air Force One, and I mean, that's kind of a rush, because you're right up there. I mean, we're official uniform, we're looking really good, and then after that we went on an evening cruise on this Dandy, which is a dinner cruise, and because I like that type of thing, because here we are, cruising down the river in Washington, D.C., and she could see Washington, D.C. in the daylight as it goes to dusk, and you see the lights coming up, and then dark.
All right.
So, yeah, that was a great first date. And then the other thing at the same time is my friend, which we're still very, very good friends to this day, my friend Scott and Pam, they just got married. I couldn't go to their wedding, so I took them on that trip,
Nice.
on that boat trip, and we had a great time together. It was awesome.
So, was there a hard readjustment to civilian life?
Not really.
Not really.
No, I think it's got to do with your expectations, and you have to redo. You may have to look at things financially,
Yeah.
or goal wise or stuff like that. But for me, it wasn't too bad. I wasn't married yet at that time. My wife did move to Arizona and whatnot, but she was a she was a registered nurse. She was well positioned, so we were able. Things just worked well as far as reestablishing. So there wasn't any problems with anything like that.
When did you go? At that point, were you in Arizona when you went to school?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
said
My education was from Arizona.
Did you use your GI Bill?
Yeah, I
was
did.
helpful?
And again, that was another thing that propelled me with the GI Bills. Again, I wasn't that knowledgeable about things. I was a lot younger, and I was traveling a lot, so I wasn't on current events. We didn't have the internet back then,
Right.
so I heard the GI Bill was going to end in like 1990. Well, I wasn't going to retire till 92.
Yeah.
So that meant when I retired, it was going to be gone.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know Congress was going to get together and do whatever
Yeah.
you can't read the future. But, and again, we're talking 1980 when I got out.
Yeah.
And, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, I really wanted to get my GI Bill because all my classmates that I'm still friends with, they were doing exceptionally well.
Yeah.
By that time, some of them had master's degrees
Yeah.
and everything else. So I said, yeah, I gotta do this, but I didn't have too much of a problem with the transition. That didn't bother me, and I think the other thing that helped is I didn't have any. There was no animosity. It's like the hell with you. I can't wait. Because you'd hear, I can't wait till I get out of this and do this, and it's like, no, I wasn't getting out for the wrong reason.
Yeah. Did you join any veterans organizations?
Not at that point in time.
Well,
I was only out a year when I went back in the Guard.
You never really got into veterans organizations? Or?
Not at that time.
Did you continued friendships, right?
Oh yeah, to this day.
Did did the service? Do you think the service affected the way you relate to others? Did it
Oh, immensely.
Immensely. Yeah.
Immensely. I get very upset today when I hear this stuff about how blacks and whites or different races get together.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've dealt with everybody and I've done it on an international level.
Mm-hmm.
And I love everybody.
Yeah.
It's like every one of these people that I have come in contact has so enriched my life. It really has. And I mean that in all sincerity, that when I hear this stuff, I'm going, who came up with this spin?
Mm-hmm.
The people, and it's not only that, it's the reciprocal. When I was in Norway, for example, I had some guy drive, my counterpart, my Norwegian counterpart, drove 40 some miles to my hotel. And he gave me a complete tour of Oslo. Now, the only thing that was bad about that is this was right around January 1st, or, we did that over New Year's and whatnot when I did that, so it got dark real early.
Mm-hmm.
But he took me this guy doesn't owe me from nothing. He doesn't owe me anything. And I'm not going to be able to do anything, for him in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened in so many places. I went to, I think about what happened when 9/11 occurred. Because I'll step back and then I'll go for it. But when I was traveling through some of the places in the Middle East, I was bargaining on, getting some souvenirs.
Mm-hmm.
This guy took me in his tent. Very, very simple accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
But you never felt more like royalty.
Mm-hmm.
He sat me down. He treated me with such... He didn't ask me my nationality, my religion.
Mm-hmm.
He treated me with the most respect. and we were doing business over stuff.
Yeah.
I was getting some souvenirs,
Mm-hmm.
and it taught me a lot. I disagreed with. I don't want to get political, but I disagreed with Bush when he said, at 9/11 we're coming to get you and stuff, because I felt that was a broad brush.
Yeah.
Because what my personal feelings on 9/11 were, you knocked on my door.
Mm-hmm.
You were a guest in my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're a guest in my house, if I have one chair as my guest, it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
When you sit at my table, you will eat first, and you can have all you want because you are a guest in my home.
Mm-hmm.
I expose you to our families.
Mm-hmm.
You asked to come into my home. I would go through any extreme to ensure your safety and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And you murdered your host.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would go down a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
in that area of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because to them, hospitality is everything. You desecrated the most basic elements of hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Take that with you.
Yeah.
Because that's what bothered me the most. I mean, for somebody to say, you did this to us, we're going to do this to you. Well, that's just adversarial talk. That's like, what do you call it? George Foreman being told by somebody else, I'm going to pound you into the canvas.
Yeah.
All you're going to get is like, really?
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring it on. Okay, let's see what happens with this. You got adversaries. They expect that.
Yeah.
But when you go specifically, because that's the other thing is when you say we're coming after you, well, that's a little bit more expansive.
Right.
Whereas if you specifically geared to anybody that was involved in this, not just the whole culture,
Right.
then you're going to have an understanding on that side. The biggest thing I got out of all of this, the whole thing, and it carries with me to this day, is that when I'm dealing with people, I don't think like I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think like you think.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, always have respect for other cultures. You don't have to agree with their culture.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, I don't have to agree with beheadings. I don't have to agree with honor killings.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm dealing with somebody that comes from that background, that's an understanding I have of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you're doing things, you have to understand where they're coming. You just can't say things. You can't say things to them. Somebody's a suicide bomber.
Mm-hmm.
Halter, I'll shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, he's going to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not the deterrent.
Right.
That's not the deterrent that's gonna affect somebody.
Right. Right.
And one of the things about this job in Washington, D.C. is we didn't have access to information like we did nowadays, and I had to do a lot of research because, again, you're going South Africa, Switzerland, Moscow, different languages, different climates. And I have to do a proper representation.
Yeah.
So I used to study on what am I getting into when I could, because some of them were real quick and you didn't have any time to.
Any other life lessons, Stan, that you learned from your military service?
Well,
Or is there how has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
not so much the military, but the government.
Yeah.
Two things. One, I skipped over. One of the things I didn't like about the job at Andrews is you're traveling with a group of people, and when we travel out of the country, we wear civilian clothes. We wear uniforms inside, and when we're traveling in the United States. And when you're traveling in civilian clothes, what happens is people don't often know who you are. And what I'm talking about, we're dealing with these congressmen and senators that have their staffers and stuff. And if they didn't travel a lot, not knowing who we are, they seem to have this tendency to think we're State Department security, Secret Service. So they treat you as if you're State Department security and Secret Service. And when some of them would find out that you're an E5 Air Force guy, attitudes change. You're military.
Okay.
Dude,
Yeah.
carry my bags.
Yeah.
That's about it. But as far as in today's day and age, how I feel about the military is sometimes the government doesn't have, they talk about the military, but they don't really have respect. Like 15 guys got killed, or whoever. Just
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. It's like we're fodder.
Okay. So then I just got a few more. Well, what do you wish more people knew about the veterans?
Veterans,
Yeah.
the disconnect that they might have with the civilian population, because they experience things. Paul, how could you do this to me? My brother told me one time he went to Vietnam at 19, and he physically came back. He sleeps on a couch with pillows on the ground because he gets so violent at night. I've always admired my brother, and thank God there's a big portion of him that didn't leave. I'm still very close to him.
Yeah.
He's distant, but I'm talking about we sit down and we talk. We'll talk for hours together.
Yeah.
But it's like he was talking about one day when they had a thing in Vietnam. They got attacked and the helicopters went out and did their deal with their miniguns and whatnot. But he goes, again, you're talking about somebody that's 19, and he says they sent us out there to bring in the bodies, and he's with somebody else, and he goes, you take this end, I'll take that end. They pick it up, they pick the person up, and the person falls in half, and it's like, how do you relate to that at that age? One month you're at your prom, the next couple months later you're picking up dead bodies.
Yeah.
It's that type of thing, and people don't understand what that does to you, and the type of things. I am so blessed because when people say thank you for your service, I had it made.
Yeah.
I had it made. I didn't dodge bullets. I didn't crawl in the sand. I didn't crawl through swamps.
Yeah.
And I've always had I have the greatest respect for these people that go through that. I really, really do. And it's like when somebody does that for a long period of time, because they go, the PTSD and stuff like this. People don't understand, and then now that because I'm a member of the DAV and I'm talking to more veterans, it's like, wow. And to try, you come back in and it's like, hey, how's it going? Everything. It's like, you don't get this.
Yeah.
It's just like when I first joined the Air Force and I was coming back because Griffiths and Buffalo are like 3 hours apart.
Yeah.
So I'm coming back and here's my college buddies. They're just having a good old time, and it's like, I'm walking around a nuclear-loaded B-52 with Hound Dog missiles, short-range attack missiles and stuff, and I'm ready to rock and roll and take somebody's life out, and you guys are just having a good old time.
Yeah.
And it's not anybody's fault.
It's just
But I'm just saying the difference is because they're in one thing, because they're talking about stuff, and it's like I can't. Oh.
So Stan, what do you wish more people knew about veterans?
Again, the disconnect that I see oftentimes is they don't understand the difficulties that veterans face. I mean, especially when they're in combat, they take people or as a veteran, you're taken and you're put into an environment that's entirely different than anything you've experienced at home as you grew up. I mean, whether you're talking about, when you hear about things in Afghanistan or Syria or Iraq or whatnot, when you hear about this stuff, these cultures are nothing that we're used to dealing with. And you've got to adjust, and you're adjusting for survival in some of this, and it makes it really difficult because you're dealing with people, the people in your organizations and whatnot, and it doesn't matter whether it's Air Force or anything else, but they're willing to die for each other. I mean, and the thing is, the average person is so disconnected from that. I can guarantee you, the people I worked with, they will have my complete support because I know they would back me up in a heartbeat. Not even a question. And one of the nicest compliments I ever got was I was talking to one of my supervisors when we were in Andrews Air Force Base, and his comment is, I don't want to, because we used to, when the plane lands, you go down the steps. He goes, because we're the first ones off before Secret Service or State Department security. They have their own. They have their own mission, but we're the first one off because we got to support the aircraft's mission. And he goes, you notice I never turn around when I go down the steps. What the hell are you talking about? Because you got my back. And I was like, Wow.
No, no, no.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
okay, so you talk about trust.
yeah,
And I mean, when you're landing in a place where you have a real high threat analysis and things like that, there's some stuff to be worried about. When the Shah of Iran was being replaced by the Ayatollah, and we were, God, I spent 3 trips. I mean, I was on 3 different missions all over the Middle East at that time, and you're landing and you're seeing snipers someplace, and it's like, okay, which way is the gun pointed? Because I mean, this picture's really nice with one exception. I wanted to get it.
Can you bring that up?
Yeah, I would have loved to have gotten this signed by Anwar Sadat, except he got killed by his own troops.
Yeah,
And this is one of the photos. This is an official Washington photo from the White House, and it was taken, or this was manufactured apparently on the 26th of March of 1979, and it's got the White House stamp on it and whatnot. But and President Carter was gracious enough to sign this for me, so it's definitely the pride of my fleet. I've got the thing open, so you know it can be proven, you know, that that's an original and stuff like that. But it had its.
what message would you like to leave for future generations that might consider going into service?
To the, you know, as the country today.
Yeah,
I wish the politicians and some of these special interest groups, because I know there's international, or I mean, what I learned from this is extensive. And I wasn't the type of, you know, some people, it's like they do their military service, they get out, do something. I've always carried an interest in this. And I think there are too many influences in this United States, in the States currently, that spin issues and would like to see this country destroyed in all different manners. Knock it off. That's my message. Knock it off. The heritage of this country has been overlooked.
yeah,
Overlooked. You want to talk about white privilege and black oppression and stuff, and I'm hearing this spin coming from the estates of somebody who is siphoning money off of contributions, and they're talking about their heritage, which what they're doing right now was built on because of people that couldn't even go to the bathroom.
yeah,
When you look at, I look at World War II, I look at 4 groups. I look at the Tuskegee Airmen. I look at the WASP, which is Women Air Service Pilots. I look at the Code Talkers. And I look at the Nisei.
What's a NISA?
Those are the children of Asian Americans that were interned. The part that General Maxwell really irritated me on is he told me, he says, you represent the heritage of the United States. And if you look at it, I look at things like, okay, you got B-17s, B-24 bombers over here. You've got ME-109s, FW-190s, and sometimes you had ME-262 jet fighters up here. You're a Tuskegee Airman, you're watching both of this. It's like, hey, I've got a free seat at this cool game. You know, let's see what happens. They didn't do that.
Yeah,
These people want to destroy everything that exists in the world. If you knew what the doctrines, if you're familiar with the doctrines of Japan and Germany during World War II, the ultimate goal was, you know, total devastation for our culture. Then you have the American pilots. The guy in Tuskegee Airmen, his mother could be on her hands and knees washing this guy's floor at his house and back in the States because she wants a better future for her kids.
yeah,
And somebody wants to talk about this stuff, and what happens? You got this guy, they don't respect you, they're trying to destroy you, and what do?
yeah,
Ramatally, red tails, tally ho. We're going into this. I could die for this.
yeah,
But this is my country.
yeah,
And I'm doing this for future generations, not so you can tear it down.
Yeah.
You build on this.
yeah, yeah,
All the garbage that Martin Luther King went through, it was an uphill battle. There were terrible things that happened as a result. But you know what? When Martin Luther King had it, it was uphill.
yeah,
Can they say that today? The niece say, your parents just lost everything. They took your businesses, they took your home, everything. They got 15,000 awards. They had like 22 or 23 medals of honor. that were given to them. Well, everything is taken up. How do you do that? Again, we talk about code talkers. They didn't have a written language. Germany sent to the United States a group of people, anthropologists, to study it. They couldn't break their code. This was before the war. Prior to World War II, I think there were only like 30. They said there was only like 30 people that could understand non-Native American languages. That's it. When they went to Iwo Jima, they had round the clock messages that were going. Nobody could break their code. What did they do? They had 800 messages, and they had no writing. There was no written form. They had 800 messages that they did to perfection. How many lives did they save? And at the same time, in the United States, the families of those people whose lives they saved were watching movies on the silver screen, cheering the demise of the Native Americans that were dying and being killed. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it's like, no, we're fighting for our ancestral lands. We believe in this country. They don't like us, but even with all the adversity, and then again, the same classic, the same thing with the women air service pilots. Do you happen to know what the most expensive project in World War II was? Because a lot of people say the Manhattan Project for the atomic bomb. It was not. It was the B-29. And they were having problems with the B-29s with fires and stuff like that. And I'm not an expert on this, but one of the things that happened is the pilots were not wanting to fly it. And what did Hap Arnold do? He said, give it to the Wasps. Had 2 women. Got in that B-29, and they flew it. Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa. Well, if they can fly it, I guess we can do it. Yeah. And it's like anything you can do, I can do afterwards.
So all the sacrifices and the risk they took.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, what makes me mad is people talk about like, oh, life is so rough, and like I said, they're sitting in their estates and stuff like that, and they're siphoning money off of contributions and whatever. And then you're telling me, oh, we're oppressed. We're oppressed. These people gave up everything, and they were ready to die, and unfortunately, some did.
Yeah.
And when they came back, they were still treated like garbage.
Yeah.
Women air service pilots had to pay for their uniforms and everything else. You had laundries that would do laundry for German POWs, but wouldn't do it for the Tuskegee Airmen. Okay. I don't want to hear how rough you've got it when it comes to that, because I've dealt with those people. I know what it's like when they say they're willing to sacrifice their life. They will do it.
Yeah, yeah. They got 3 more questions. What would you like people to know, Stan? What would you like people to know or remember about your story?
Oh, these people here, I have never fought.
Just people in general.
The people that I came in contact with that enriched my life, I will never forget you. That's why that girl in London always haunts me, because I never had an opportunity to thank her properly. I have, everybody I came in contact enriched my life tremendously. It made me delve into things like history, heritage. I can't thank them enough. I wish I had the ability to impact things more than I can.
Just grateful.
Terribly, yes.
Is there anything you've always wanted to share about your service or veteran experience that you never have? Anything that kind of...
Wow. There's probably some stuff now. I'd have to do some thinking on that. I can't. I just made so many friends.
Okay. Well, other than that, Stan, we'd like to thank you once again for you taking your time and effort to give us your story, and we feel it was a really great story, and we just wish you the best of luck going forward.
Sure thing. Thank you much.